Hello and welcome to another episode of the Boring AppSec podcast. Today we're chatting with Ankita Gupta, the co-founder and CEO of Acto. Before starting Acto, Ankita has worked at CleverTap, VMware, and JP Morgan. I've known and worked with Acto since the very beginning of the company and have been impressed with their execution. We talked to her about why they started in security, why they started in API security, her lessons marketing a 0 to 1 security startup, and much, much more. Listen in. So, Ankita, welcome to the show. Is there anything else you want to talk about your journey before kind of starting Acto?
Yeah, I think my journey before Actor. So I've had thanks firstly Sandesh and Anshuman for having me at this podcast. Appreciate it. So my journey has been pretty interesting in the sense now if I look back and you also talked about it, right? Like I've done different things, various roles. Of course, engineer by design, but I actually had done investments, investment roles. I've done sales operations roles. I've done chief of staff to the CEO kind of roles. I've also done my MBA. So, and now I'm the CEO and founder of an API security platform. And now that I think about it, I feel like why did I not start this company earlier? And why did it take me like 10 years to start a company? And I think everyone around me, I just tell them, you don't wait, just start your company. If you want to start, don't wait. Uh, so, so my journey to Acto, I think, has been pretty natural. I don't know. I never thought I'd start a company. That was not an intention. That hey, I one day I will start a company. That was never a thing. But I think it so happened, and in COVID, like everyone went through different phases. But for me, it just was so natural that I was happy with my job, but I was also, I mean, I'm always curious about, hey, what next, or what's different out there, kind of thing. But what really happened was I had this very good friend. Who's now my co-founder. We used to discuss a lot of things about, different issues, different things, different technology and stuff like that. And he happened to have a project where he was actually doing very small part of what we are building now, but it was more around security testing, security assessment, which was needed for one of the client projects, actually client compliance at CleverTap at a previous company. And that led to a lot of conversations about, me asking like, why are you building it? Why are you doing it manually? Kind of, like why don't you just buy a tool which is maybe more automated? And that led to us thinking about actually researching on the market, me doing it more than him. But and I felt like, okay, this is interesting because wasn't really a good tool which was automated. It was all very manual kind of, and that's why of course he had to build it. So he was trying to build it, and so that sort of gave birth to Acto. Of course, it became very big when we started talking to a lot of people, but the initial version was how to automate the security testing part of the pen testing or security testing part of what he was doing at CleverTap. So that was my natural journey of Acto, and then after that, it's been 2.5, 3 years now, and it's been a phenomenal ride. So you've known it, of course, Sandesh.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of been pretty interesting to see the journey as well. I know we spoke very early on in Acto's journey when I was at Razorpay as well, and I think and we'll get into this more when we go through the podcast. But I always I really find it interesting to talk to non-security folks talk about security. I mean, we can't call you a non-security person anymore. I think you're pretty deep into the industry now, right? But when I spoke to you first, it was very interesting because you were describing the same problems that we were having, but the language used and the approach taken was very different and very refreshing, right? So I always find it very exciting when when developers, marketing folks, lawyers, etc., talk about cybersecurity, where I feel like, oh, maybe they bring in a different perspective, right? So I think what Ankush and you've done is very interesting. Very impressed with what you've done so far. And I think you kind of spoken a little bit about Acto already, but anything else you want to talk about what Acto does today before we kind of get into the show?
Yeah. So okay, about Acto. Acto is an API security platform. What we do is really provide a platform to the AppSec teams to discover, test, and secure their APIs. And our vision is to proactively secure APIs, and we'll see a lot of it in 2025, how Actor is shaping. So we've been around for 2.5 years. It's a seed stage startup, growing pretty fast, especially this year. So that's Actor.
Nice. Anshuman, did you have a question for Ankita?
Yeah. So let's get into it. So, obviously your background and your experience is very interesting, something that at least we haven't seen in folks who actually start companies in the cybersecurity space. So I'm curious to know, like, considering the fact that you didn't really have a lot of traditional security background, what made you switch domains completely, and like how was that experience? Especially because I'm asking this question because in the cybersecurity space, I'm sure you've seen this. There's so many vendors, tools out there that um, they're very expensive, but that don't necessarily solve problems for big enterprises. I've had experiences working with such tools myself. So jumping in an industry like this, starting your own company is very uh, like animating for me at least, right? So I'm just kind of curious to know, like, what was your experience like?
Yeah, Anshuman, that's a very good question, right? Like now that I think back, um, I think I was never tied to an industry. I've worked with VMware, I've worked with CleverTap, I've worked with LinkedIn, JP Morgan. They're all very different. So I was never tied to a technical product or an industry, so as to say. And so for me, getting into cybersecurity felt nothing different, really. I was very close to, I wanted to solve that problem. That challenge was very interesting to me, and I felt like I could solve it, me and my co founder both. So never thought, oh, it's a very different industry. How will we do it? That was never a question. The question was, how do we build this platform that can solve the problem we know exists? Because of the conversations we have had with these many people, right? So, um, and now that I think about it, when I got into cybersecurity and I realized, uh, Vanta, for example, the founder of Vanta, she's not from cybersecurity, and they're building a phenomenal platform. I mean, you can see Vanta where it's growing, and Rubrik, uh, IPO'd. That guy, that's like he's what an MBA. He's not from cybersecurity at all, and phenomenal company. I think, and there are other cases where you have had backgrounds from cybersecurity, and I know personally the founders who have had those backgrounds, and I think there is there are pros and cons to having that kind of background. The con is I feel sometimes you're so tied to the experience that you've had that there are biases, and with where you're starting from, you don't want to pivot, you're not very flexible, you don't want you feel like, yes, this is what you've seen in 10 years, and this is how it will work, kind of. So I think we didn't come from that bias at all. We were very flexible, we were very agile, we were always listening to the customer all the time, because as you said, right, we are not coming from that background, so we were very much listening. We did so much research, we talked to so many of the potential buyers, because of that gap, and that actually really helped us not just copy what competitors are doing. Now if you see, uh, our product is extremely differentiated from all our competitors. In fact, a lot of our competitors are copying our product, and our vision, our complete next year's roadmap is so independent of whatever our competitors are doing. So I think that's a risk you can take if you're not coming from that bias. And the pros are, obviously, you get the very good network, and you can start with that in your first year. I think, but beyond first year, it doesn't really help. It's you can't have the same GTM in the second year. You can't really go to your network in the second year, in the third year, right? You have to build your own GTM. So for us, it wasn't there, and hence we started with zero, and now we have a solid foundation, which Like we know it can scale. It's not just a network. Literally, we didn't get any customer from network. We didn't have any.
Got
So
it. So I think what I'm hearing is, yeah, just kind of focus on the customer problem and your own
yeah,
problems, because you experienced the like there was no platform as such, so it made you build this. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But having said that, do you have
I want to
any?
add. I want to
Yeah,
add over there, Anshuman. Here, see,
sure.
if you're coming out of college, you don't have any experience in any field,
Uh,
marketing, finance, cybersecurity, right? What would I tell that person today? I will not tell a person coming out of college to gain experience and then start a startup. It's very much that, mixed panel, and there are a lot of like large enterprise SaaS companies where people have just started out of college and without any experience in that domain, and they've done wonderfully well. And I think, yeah, so for a founder, what you need is, of course, domain knowledge really helps you, but what you need, if you have those 5 6 qualities that I think are very important, then I think you can really build a $1 billion business.
got it. But having said that, would you still say that having a good co-founder is also important? Because uh, I think that is the number two thing, right? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, 100%, 100%. So I'm a big fan of Y Combinator, and I'll talk about, what this guy, Paul Graham, says. And he once said this, and I quote this a lot, that 10% of a great co-founder is better than 100% of a bad co-founder. And I quote this so much because it just makes so much sense. I think I have the best co-founder, hands down. I mean, I'm biased, but I'll say that. I you uh, it's starting alone and not having a co-founder. I would not advise to anyone. You need a good co-founder. You can't have a bad co-founder because the number one reason why startups fail is co-founder split. So of course, don't start with that. But having a good co-founder helps you so much in your startup journey. You will have 100 reasons to quit, 100 reasons to feel bad in the day, and you need somebody to talk to and get motivated and really brainstorm and just, yeah, the decision doesn't come just by yourself, right? Like you need somebody who can say, yes, you are doing the right thing and please do it this way, or challenge you at times when you're doing the wrong thing. So I think I've been very lucky there. Ankush and I have this relationship where I tell him very clearly that, hey, this is not something that I feel is right, and he tells me the same, and we do respect each other's opinion. I think that's extremely important.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things that you said that I want to kind of double click on, right? But one of the things you spoke about, kind of like different industries, and the problem is a problem, and as long as you can solve it and you can sell it, I guess that's
Yeah.
good enough, right? But one of the, I think, problems in the cybersecurity industry is I kind of feel like and I'm guilty of it because I've been in this industry all my life, is that we kind of feel like the problems with cybersecurity are very special and we are like special snowflakes, and that only nobody else has the problems that we have, right? And honestly, every time I like, that's why I like talking to people from other industries. Like a lot of the problems that we feel are unique to cybersecurity has been solved by like sales teams across the world. Like, we talk about, oh, it's so hard to convince stakeholders about cybersecurity. I'm like, have you ever spoken to a salesperson on how hard it is to sell a product, right? It's kind of the same thing, right? You have to figure out how to sell. So in general, kind of, you've looked at a few industries, right? You worked in tech, you worked in banking, you worked in marketing, etc. I mean, what are some things where you feel like, is either what about cybersecurity kind of surprised you? Maybe, I mean, it may be in tech, it may be in the way the market is, it may be the way the stakeholders behave, whatever it is, right? What about cybersecurity kind of surprised you, or do you think is kind of different from some of the other industries that you worked in?
Yeah. One thing I can definitely tell you that surprises me and still surprises me is that the buyers are, I mean, the AppSec teams, I will talk about them because I know them very well. They're constantly buying tools. They're like every year they're buying good 3 4 tools, and I've not seen that in any other industry. Of course, they also buy tools, but it's like here it's like there's a whole process around, hey, there is an RFP and there is going through the whole vendor assessment and then procurement and everything. But that's like every single person I meet, even from mid market to of course large enterprises, even small companies, they are so they're so mature, like they know the process so well, even like a 25-year-old. And I till my 30s, I didn't know these kind of processes. We've been part of buying tools, but I don't think that existed so much in other places, in other industries compared to cybersecurity. There's just a lot of relying on vendors, I feel.
Yeah. No, that's actually really interesting that you say that, because at my time in Razorpay, right, I kind of figured that, people who are my peers, like for example, I used to run I used to manage the security team within Razorpay, and I had a lot of peers who were like, senior engineering managers, associate directors, etc., who are mostly running dev shops, right, dev teams. And until kind of the senior director or the VP level, they never made like buying decisions, right? The decision was to build. How do I build? How do I make things better?
Yeah.
Somebody bought something for you and you figured it out. If you really wanted to buy something new, you would probably tell someone that, hey, this is a great idea. What do you think about it? But you don't actually go through the motion of things like procurement, figuring out, evaluating for multiple tools, etc. But if you're in the AppSec team and if you're in a small to mid-market company, especially, right? If you're in a smallish company, you kind of think about buying products and how to evaluate products like 3-4 years into your career. That's actually really interesting. I never thought about it, but you are right. Right? People in their 20s are thinking about, hey, what tool should we buy next year? Not something that happens in many teams.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, young people, they just know the process so well. And that as a vendor helps
Of
us
course.
because you just have to get into their process. So it's a very structured process, and it makes our life easier for sure.
Yeah.
But for the buyer, I feel like they're so reliant on vendors. So I think
Yeah.
that's a very big surprise for me.
Yeah. No, I think in general, build versus buy is like a really, really interesting thing to think through. We've thought a lot about kind of, when do you build and versus when do you buy. And the nature of security is that you're kind of figuring out what the attackers are doing. So necessarily, it's less about your company and more about what the world is doing. So therefore, like when you think about Acto and you write all these API security rules, right? It's about what attacks are possible in the world, and you have to account for that and contextualize for your company. So the contextualization for your company you can do, but what's out there in the world is not something every security team can build. So because of that nature in general, I kind of feel like, buying becomes a thing, whether it's threat intel or API security or pen testing or whatever it is. The outside in view is very important in security, right? So I think that kind of lends us to find kind of having to buy instead of build everything from scratch, unless you're like a Google or like a massive company, right? No, but that's really interesting. I never thought about that angle about procurement and stuff like that. Very cool. The other thing I've kind of noticed, you and Ankush in possibly every conference I've gone to, at least in the US, right? And I've seen that you folks present and you kind of exhibit in many of these conferences, right? And also you kind of took an interesting approach on having open source your entire platform in the initial days, etc. Right? You know, how do you think about marketing a global cybersecurity startup, right? I mean, the one thing about cybersecurity is most cybersecurity companies are global in nature, in the sense that you can, once you pick a market and sell, maybe you can sell everywhere and stuff. Having said that, it's not maybe possible to sell everywhere at the same time. So in general, if you're a cybersecurity startup, let's say in year 1 or year 2, and yeah, I'm getting free advice from you as well here, right? Just how do you think about marketing your startup, and how do you think about just your go-to-market motion and getting your word out there, in the world?
Yeah, I can talk about what we've done at Acto, but I don't know if we've cracked it or we know the secret sauce. I don't think we are there. But I'll talk about what we've done, and you touched upon, we've attended conferences and all of that. So I think Sandesh, in your early years, as a startup founder, and you will know this obviously, you're trying to do everything possible to sell your product, to market your product, right? Be it social media, be part of the Reddit communities. We've done everything like booths and talking at different conferences, and like individually messaging people on LinkedIn and Twitter and whatnot. We've done everything possible. So, but in I think till last year we were doing everything possible. This year we were more strategic about it. So we, especially this year, we did last year also we did a lot of conferences, but we spoke in conferences. This year we did booths and speaking both. And what happened is, we realized, because of these conferences, we realized what kind of audiences actually relate to our product, the problem statement. It was not so much to market the product. Honestly, it was more to refine our pitch. We were pitching to them, and we realized we could get instant feedback from them right there. And we also started at the time in 2023. Nobody wanted to get out of their houses and meet us and all that, because still COVID time, still people were living very far away from cities and stuff like that. So meeting those people personally was really important. It would give us so much energy that, oh, we are building the right thing, or sometimes it will give us feedback that, hey, we are probably not doing this thing right, kind of. So it was more feedback for us. But in terms of, to answer your question about marketing a cybersecurity startup, or any startup for that matter, and I'll talk about Acto because I've only had cybersecurity startup. The thing that will work and should work is marketing around your product. I feel, if you're building the right product, meaning if you're solving the right problem, if the users or the audience, AppSec audience, which is the audience that we sell to, relate to your problem, I think you have to give them that value in your positioning, in your messaging, and you keep talking about it every single day, every single week, every single month, till people get it. Maybe refine it, maybe keep changing it, but you have to sort of iterate that marketing positioning also from day one till now. We are doing this till, like, it's been 2.5 years, 3 years. We didn't even do any marketing in the first year, so we're still refining it. But the thing is, it has to be around your product. It has to be so differentiated. It cannot be the same thing that other competitors are saying. It has to be very different, not just for the sake of it, but you have to believe in it. And that's, I think that really worked for us, especially this year, that um, we were talking about our product, uh, and also marketing Acto at the same time, that, hey, like, we are an API security platform with testing first capabilities. And it's a deep platform, it's a deep tech, it's it has these many test cases. And so people started, only those kind of audiences who really cared about testing started relating to us. And I think that's really helpful. In terms of channels, social media is a big one. I think that's still not everyone understands how to use social media. I don't think I also do. But social media is a very, very big one for enterprise SaaS also, especially LinkedIn, not Twitter if you're doing enterprise. I think Reddit also helps, just being part of the community and, talking about your product. SEO is a big one. No matter if you're building an enterprise SaaS company or SMB, you're selling to SMBs or mid-market, you need to get the SEO right. I think that if when you were saying marketing, I felt like it's more GTM. If it's branding, then it's a totally different answer. But for GTM, I feel like these things, SEO, of course, outbound, but social
Yeah.
media, these things help.
And since you spoke about brand, right? I mean, obviously, one of the problems is that, there are so many cybersecurity companies out there, right? So when you start a new brand, for example, how do you kind of get your word out? Like, I mean, is the answer a little different for how do you build a brand, or is it kind of just do more of the same and it'll eventually happen?
I think even we don't know today, right? Like, we don't know if how people think of our brand, our company, if we even have that kind of branding. But this is what this is what has helped us. We've just I think, like, being part of conferences is not really the branding as people think about it. Like, you're part of 10 conferences where you're meeting 100 people per conference, which is only 1,000 audience, right? That's not you're not appealing to only 1,000. So it's I feel like knowing, oh, your brand represents, for us, it was, we are building a no nonsense product. We are building a completely, like, deep tech. We are founders who believe in this problem and who want to solve it in the right way, and not have some just like great UI and some kind of some plastic thing and then selling it to people. Oh, we had that in our branding, in our positioning, in everything that we are talking about. We did so many speaking sessions in different conferences, and we were just talking very deep tech. And so, because of which, I think there's this whole branding about Acto, which I feel is more about this company is solving for testing, and they have deep test cases, is how people say, Acto is solving this problem. So I think, yeah, from branding perspective, again, I don't have a great answer to it. We're still figuring it out, but that's what worked for us.
Uh, I have a follow-up question to that. So, in the AppSec space these days, especially you hear so many terms like CNAP, ASPM, CSPM, blah, blah, blah. I think Vince is basically one of the biggest vendors out there that seems to be taking over all other smaller vendors, right? So, considering the fact that in this space, which we have right now, Apto is primarily focused on API security, right? It's a big thing to put out there saying that our company focuses on API security only. So I guess my question to you is, do you think this space is big enough for Acto to keep expanding and growing, or do you feel like you are interested in expanding to solving other problems in the AppSec space as well?
Yeah. Very good question, Anshuman. I think every startup starts with, a problem, a small enough problem, but like big enough market uh, to solve for. So API security, yes, it's not a $10 billion problem. It's maybe 500 million to $1 billion problem. Um, CNAP and all of these big platforms, they are very big, right? Like, and Wiz also started with cloud security, and now they've become this CNAP, and they've had massive execution. Normally, companies take 10 years to reach where Wiz has reached in 4 years. So for us also, I don't think it's going to be very different. It's like what we are doing. If we are doing it well, the product will become a platform, and the platform will definitely expand to multiple places and solve problems of AppSec teams. So our customers remain the same,
Hmm.
but what we are building is so powerful, um, can be extended to multiple places. For example, if you see Snyk started with only the dependencies, I think. Now they
Yeah.
have like 5 different products. SemGrep started with only SaaS, and now they have SaaS plus SCA plus, I think, one more thing, secret scanning.
Secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've mastered one thing well,
Hmm.
it's relatively easier for you to expand into adjacent areas.
Right. So you do consider Acto as a platform and not specifically a product, right? Like you do have plans
Yeah.
of expanding
Yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
got it.
100%. It's been 2.5 years now. The whole plan is to expand. First, you need to get your basics right for the
Yeah.
product that you're building. And now we know, okay, this thing that we have built is very powerful. Now we can expand into different directions. So yeah.
Yeah. Got it. And uh, another question around the same topic of API security. So, I've worked for big enterprises and smaller startups as well. Um, Pretty much every company I've worked for, we've used APIs in some extent, right? But API security has never been a problem big enough or, which has the most priority, at least in my experience. So when you approach your clients or prospective customers, right, how do you make this case that, look, your APIs are super important, you have to secure them, and so that's why you need to use our platform, right? I'm just trying to understand in this vast space of, AppSec, where there's so many other problems as well, uh, like how do you make the case for APIs being one of the most important things to consider?
Got it. Anshuman, so if we are making the case that API security is important, then we are failing at it. We actually don't do it. We don't need 100% of the companies to have that problem. We need only few. Even 10% of the companies have this problem. It's a large market. So we really try to find out, if you have a problem, if you have that problem, API security problem, and it's urgent today, then Acto will solve it for you. Otherwise, we do not spend time in convincing the person, because then they will not never use it. They will buy the product. Even if we convince the person, they will buy the product, they will never use it. So we find enough number of people who have this problem already, and it's urgent for them, and they have a project and they have a budget, and they want to solve for this, and we
Right.
only try to find these people. So the whole idea of the GTM is, out of the million people, find those 1,000 or 10,000 who
Yeah.
have this problem.
So in your experience, right, of having worked with different clients and customers, uh, have you seen a trend where, the API security problem exists in companies where they might not have a good like SDLC practice? Or I'm just trying to understand, because the way I understand APIs and API security is you're fundamentally designing the APIs in an insecure way, or you don't have the right security controls in place, right? So is there any trend that you've observed in all the clients that you worked with?
I think, okay, so honestly, API security is it's just an extension of AppSec. I mean, what is static code analysis doing? It is doing code analysis, but it's also doing, solving for vulnerabilities like injection, etc., which is also sometimes coming from APIs. So now, uh, the the reason why a client would want API security is, there are a few questions that we ask. First is, they have the massive API discovery problem. They don't know their APIs. And I think that's the number one problem, especially if you're a large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, it's a number one problem. Now let's talk about the second problem, which is API security testing. Now, the qualification for us is, um, are you doing something manual that's very, very painful? And if they're doing it and it's painful, and they do not want to go through that pain every year of, testing, and they're taking a Swagger file trying to test, but not able to do the whole coverage, and in bug bounties and in attacks they're able to see IDOS and RBAC issues and things like that. If we ask those questions good enough in your 30 minutes of discovery call, this person, this company has a problem, and they are genuinely looking for for a platform. Now, there are also cases where people have this problem, but it's probably not a priority because there are 100 burning things. But it's not a priority today. It will be a priority next year or year after. So we'll catch them in 2 years. That's how we think about it.
Okay, got it. Um, Sandesh, do you have any follow-up questions before I ask my next one? Sorry.
No, I just like the point you made about we'll catch them later. I mean, they're not going anywhere. APIs are not going
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Hackers
they're
are
not
not
going
stopping
anywhere.
anytime soon. If you're not convinced now, you will be, and we'll still be here when it happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. So speaking about APIs, right, and this new era of LLMs and AI and stuff. This
Dropping
is
the P in API
Yeah.
should be the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to know. Like I know we've spoken about it a fair bit in the past. Um, Based on your experiences so far and your experimentation, uh, what are your thoughts on how LLMs are going to impact this whole landscape of API security? And have you experimented with using AIs to solve some of these problems? And if so, like how do you feel about it?
Yeah. Anshuman, so just the DNA of us founders in general is, we're always constantly learning, constantly trying to find better and better ways of doing what we are doing. Now, we 100% believe LLMs are changing the way people are operating in their day-to-day lives, work lives. Um, every single company I know, like the largest of the largest companies who take years to make a product, are now shipping products left, right, and center for AI. Sales, like things like Salesforce takes years to ship product, but Salesforce has these AI agents and whatnot now. So it's it's incredible, the things that AI agents and AI LLMs in general can do. And in every industry, what I mean to say is, in every industry, be it sales, marketing, cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is not a different industry. It's like, if you're building a tech product, you will use LLMs. You should use LLMs. So in API security is LLMs uh, uh, can LLMs be useful? Can we use LLMs to improve API security? 100% yes. And are we doing it? Definitely, we are working on it. We are constantly thinking how to do it better and better. Um, we there are 100 ways in which you can improve API security using LLM. Um, but we're trying to find best ways. It's not. It doesn't have to be just 2x better. It has to be 10x better, and that's how we think always. And that's what we are working on also. So LLMs totally can shape. I don't think just API security, code security, data security, even compliance. I think there's so many use cases where LLMs can be very powerful, and um, every founder, I'm sure, must be thinking about it.
Right. So, there are different approaches of using LLMs. There's obviously the AI agents, and within agents, there are different kind of frameworks. There's React framework. There's a bunch of other frameworks, right? And uh, if you don't consider agents, just considering LLMs itself, right? There's the retrieval augmented generation approaches, and even with that, there's different kinds. There's hierarchical, graph based, right? So, uh, like, is there have you experimented with these different approaches? And if so, would you like to share anything from your learning so far?
Yeah, so not me, but my co-founder obviously has, and my team obviously has, and I know from their learnings what they've learned. The biggest learning, and it's kind of funny, from my co-founder, who, by the way, is probably the best tech person I know, and I know a lot of people. He's told me after all his research and going through every single thing on internet that a lot of people what they're doing with LLMs is actually not like nothing.
Hmm.
I don't know the right words to say, but it's basically he's saying that his words were they're not doing anything with LLMs. He said that Angita, we are going to build an amazing thing, but what they're doing, what everyone is doing, feels like weird. They're not doing anything. I don't know how
Yeah.
they are even existing. Kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't know any truth in it. I just know what he said to me because I have not
Hmm.
explored those products. And he generally talks very simple, very like plain language that it's either yes or no, it's black or white. So he figured out as what's happening in the world is probably not the
Yeah.
like not the
Yeah.
right thing. So yeah, definitely he's working on it. We are not going to, as I said earlier, we our fundamentals are very clear. We don't put out shallow things.
Hmm.
And so we are trying to figure out a way uh, to build a very powerful um something using LLMs for API security or maybe AppSec.
Yeah. No, I think in general I kind of agree with what you mentioned, and kind of Ankush's thinking on it as well, right? I think there was a lot of pressure on companies to release something with LLMs, right? And it's kind of like fine. Like if you think about, I think the one analogy I really like is when the iPhone first came out, the most popular app on, I mean, there was no app store initially, but when the app store first came out, the most popular app, the one that made a lot of money, was the flashlight app. Okay, so for the first 1 or 2 years, all the use cases were like joke use
Yeah,
cases, like turn, because there was no way to actually turn on the camera flash without actually taking a photo. So somebody built an app for it, and that person made like millions of dollars in revenue, right? So what I'm saying is that I think when a new technology comes, yeah, there's going to be a lot of like just people trying stuff out, people pushing things because their investors asking what's going on,
yeah,
or the analyst wants things out and stuff like that. But over time, I'm hoping that the technology is powerful enough that there are the real use cases emerge. So in many ways, I think 2025 is going to be the really exciting year of LLM use
yeah,
cases, because the 2023 hype cycle is over, right? The 2024 kind of, LLMs are nothing is also over. So now kind of the people who are still serious and who are still thinking about LLMs 2 years after the launch are the ones who will probably make something really cool, right? So
yeah.
I'm 100% with you that, we haven't really seen great use cases yet. But that's only because we haven't spent enough time with it. And hopefully, as the technology matures, we'll see great things coming out this year.
Yeah, I feel like for some products we've definitely seen great use cases.
Mhm.
But the thing is, Sandesh, it's okay if people are using LLMs for basic use cases. in startups, especially for early stage startups, because if you're using it for basic use cases, only then you can become like 10x in 1-2 years. If you're not even starting there, then how will you even iterate? So that's our methodology also. I mean, we're not putting it out there, but we're very like constantly iterating on things that we are doing. So like we have a we have a Acto GPT plugin in our product, feature in our product, which is very basic, absolutely basic, like does very simple things. But because we have build that, and we are building few other things around with LLMs, we understand how it works well, sort of. And we're going to only iterate on it and make it very, very powerful. So you have to get to the step 1 to get to step 10. You can't just jump to step 10. So I think it's totally okay for startups to do that.
Yeah.
Early stage startups were doing this. But in fact, like even Microsoft has put out their so, like everything around GPT, everything around AI, right? And that's also, those are very basic versions. And Mark Benioff had this whole blog about, I think, article about how it's such a basic version. But that's totally okay. That's totally okay. It's because they have done this year. Now, 2025, they have the right to win. They will definitely make it better. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's totally
Yeah,
okay.
makes sense.
I just want to plus one to that. I think this space is all about experimentation. I've been
Yeah.
playing with it for almost 6-7 months now, and I don't think there's one single approach that will work or that works for every use case. You have to experiment with different models, different frameworks, different approaches. So, yeah, I think companies have to start somewhere, and the more they integrate AI into their own workflows, will help them inform of how they can build products around that, right? So, yeah, couldn't agree more with that.
Okay. Cool. I think we're running out of time. Anshuman, did you have anything else for Ankita?
Very good.
Good. Okay. Well, Ankita, thank you so much for joining us. This is great. This is great to have you. I know you and I have spoken a lot about a lot of things over the last 2 years, but it's always interesting when you put this on a platform. You ask questions that I never thought of asking over the last year. So this has kind of been very exciting. So thank you for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. I think I really enjoyed it. It was very candid for me. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm getting recorded or anything. So I was talking as if I would talk to you in a cafe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Ankita.
much. Thank you for joining us. If you like the show, please share this with your friends and colleagues. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Anshuman on Twitter at Anshuman_BH. That's ANSHUMAN_BH. And me, Sandesh, at Juba on Jeans. That's JUBBAONJEANS. See you next time.